Welcome to the Travel Massive podcast.
Hi, it's Kevin O'Shaughnessy from Travel Massive in Dublin here, and in this long play Travel Massive podcast, I'm joined by Steve Domin, co-founder of the travel tech startup Duffel. Now, I've been tracking Steve's progress through the business since 2018, and it was a great opportunity for us to catch up, to talk business, tech, and opportunities in the wider travel business. If you don't know Duffel, they're the platform that gives you access to flights as a building block for your travel or travel-adjacent business. Steve does a better job of introducing all that in our conversation. But before we switch over, if you've any feedback, drop us a note to podcast@travelmassive.com. Don't forget to subscribe and share if you enjoyed the podcast, and for all of your latest travel industry announcements and news from content and technology in the travel business, head on over to travelmassive.com. This interview was recorded in February 2022. Steve Domin from Duffel, thank you for joining us on this special interview on the Travel Massive podcast. Joining us from London. How is it in London today, Steve?
Very nice, very sunny actually. Thanks for having me.
Steve, for people that don't know Duffel, can you give me just an elevator pitch, please, of what Duffel is and what you're trying to do as a business?
Yeah, sure. We build an API-first, developer-friendly platform for searching, booking, and managing flights. That's the short version.
Now, here's the bit that we need to unbundle for some of our listeners, because an API is something that's quite technical, right? It's for me, it's just the raw code behind making the web work. And I know I'm still going to lose people with that definition, but when somebody asks you really know what's an API and what can it do for me, how would you take them through a journey of understanding where you fit into the business and what you're capable of doing?
Yeah, I think usually an analogy I like to use is the utility company analogy. So if you think about at your house all the appliances that you have, that's the TV, speakers, and all of the other things that are connected to the electricity in your house. These are all the applications and the website that you can use on the web. We do the pipes behind that. We do the electrical grid that connects your house to the power company. So I think that's the simplest analogy I can find usually.
You're the power company for flights?
Yeah, I guess the power grid for flights. Yeah. Yeah.
I like it. Okay.
The power company is the airline in that case.
Got you. Okay. So when it comes to building cool products in travel, like you'll see quite a number of startups out there that will pitch, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could sell flights a certain way? But like I get the impression that flights are designed to only be sold one way on a website or maybe a mobile app, where you're setting your origin, destination, and your dates, and it seems to be the same old all the time. Steve, I mean, how much innovation can we bring to this space really? And can we think of something better to do with flight content than just have it sold all on its own or as part of a package? What else can we do with flights, and why is this an interesting space to be in?
Yeah, super interesting question. I think when it comes to flights, selling is just one part of the entire journey. I think the shop and book experience, as it's called in the industry, is fairly standardized today to a certain extent. And there's been like innovation in the last couple of years, especially when it comes to inspirational shopping and being able to search multiple origin and destinations at once and getting ideas for where we want to go. And I think we can do better than that, but it's not gonna, I don't have like a revolutionary idea that's gonna make it a lot better. Now, where it becomes more interesting, and one of the reasons why we started the company is that point of sale today, the options are very limited. So you often will have to go to an online travel agency or your corporate travel agency on the corporate side. And I think personally, there are like opportunities to embed that travel experience elsewhere, to embed that moment of shopping in on other websites and other applications. There are a lot of companies that gravitate around travel, around the travel industry, and that would benefit from being able to offer flights. So one example is if you're an event company or sports events or festival or concerts or a conference organizer, or there's lots of opportunities for you to offer the flight to your conference or to your festival or to your sports events or other modes of transport for that matter, alongside the main product that you're selling, it being a conference ticket or a sports event ticket. So that's the first part, is I think we could embed that shopping experience in more places. And then the last bit that's quite relevant as well is, again, shopping and booking is just one small sliver of the entire travel experience. And this is where APIs and that kind of embedded travel experience becomes really, really powerful. You could think of many different ways in which you could access your reservations and change it. I think one example I really like to use, and if I may have already mentioned it last time we were speaking, but if you're grabbing a Uber to the airport, it would be very nice for Uber to be able to pull up your reservation, access the details, sell you on some ancillary services. Maybe you're running late and you need fast track through security or other things like that. And yeah, I think that's the most powerful opportunity.
It's kind of like a catalyst role you're playing there. You're not an airline. You're not selling the products, but you're enabling it. Maybe is that a way to look at it? You're enabling that extra type of experience to happen. The way you describe it as being able to buy an extra part of the journey, like the fast pass at security, because you're late, you're in the taxi, you're running to the airport. You're not selling that pass, though. That's not your inventory. That's not your thing. You're just enabling the transaction. You're making that transaction happen faster, more easily, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I really like that word, enabling. I think that's pretty much all what Duffel is about, is enabling transaction, and transaction in the technical sense, not necessarily just shopping transaction, but enabling communication between the end seller and the airline. And I think that's really the power of the product we're building.
I wonder, I'd like to talk about hackathons in a minute, because there's something that comes up literally at almost every hackathon, and we've done a few on our side, a lot of the NDC hackathons, and we'll talk about NDC in a second maybe, but it seems almost like a rite of passage for a startup promoter, a travel entrepreneur, to have an idea in a team where they're saying, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could sell concert tickets to far away great concerts for your band, just to pick up on one of your ideas. And it almost seems like a footnote or a by the way, or, oh yeah, we'll get the flight inventory somewhere. I really want to plug into that word enable here, because it's not as easy as it looks to get access to flights. You expect airlines to just set out their stall and throw open their doors, come one, come all, and sell our stuff. It's not as easy as it looks, right?
Not at all. And actually, I've painfully discovered that as we started Duffel and along the way. There are a lot of barriers to being able to do that, and we're trying to tackle them one by one with Duffel. So the first one is the technologies. You need to be able to access his airline reservation system, and you need to be able to search and book and change and cancel and do all of the things that you would expect to do on the airline website. And that's like pure technology. That technology today exists. There's the GDS that have been around for quite a long time, but if you've ever used the GDS, or for the listeners that have already used the GDS, they will know that it's not the easiest to use. The APIs are quite dated. The documentation is somewhat lacking, support as well. it's a beast. It's a very big beast, and there's a lot of complexity that's been accumulated over the year. So if you're a new developer,
That kind
yeah,
of suggests then that anybody that kind of goes into that space, it's almost like a one-way journey. You know, if you're going to sell flights and it's very, very complicated to get through it, it's almost like that's going to be a whole part of your team, or maybe the only thing that you'll get to do. You can't focus on anything that's going to be different. You're focusing on something that's going to be the same. So by the time you've worked with one airline and added on another and another and another, all of a sudden your team is mushroomed into this giant airline relationship building engine, and you're not really focusing on the thing that makes you you.
yeah,
Right? There's just too much
yeah,
work.
100%. Yeah, you can't spend time on differentiators. You're only catching up on the basics. And I guess that's from a technology standpoint, that's really what we're trying to do with Duffel, is transforming that into a commodity, but a commodity that's easy to access, easy to build on top, and yeah, that's the core of what we do on the tech side.
So you're making it easier to get access to airline stuff. They've obviously built a relationship with you over time. You bring them all together. Do you bring them all together, or just some airlines? What's actually going on there?
Yeah, so we initially started the company, and the NDC was right there and growing and gaining momentum. And we built the platform on top of NDC and top of Direct Connects. So the first airlines we offered on the platforms were some of the large full service carriers like American Airlines, British Airways, Lufthansa, Emirates, and the others. And we also added low-cost carriers over time to kind of expand that content, so Transavia, Vueling, and a few others. And last year, we also announced a new partnership with Travelport. So that partnership expands the realm of content that we have available. We're still investing massively into direct connects and building new airlines live every quarter. But yeah, we have a very exhaustive inventory.
So for the uninitiated, NDC is the protocol, the way of communicating between airlines and other airlines or other actors in the travel business. For the geeks there, it's the new distribution capability, but it was a protocol to try and open the doors a little bit, to try and make things a little bit more accessible. Your timing was fantastic because this was becoming a trend. Like, they've been working on this for years, but it started to emerge around 2015, 2016. And then you guys came along and you were right on time to start harnessing that and making it even easier to use.
Yeah, very lucky on that part. Very lucky. I can't say that it was planned in any way.
Tell me about the team, Steve. Who else is behind the curtain, making the show come together?
Yes, so I started the company with my co-founder Tom, who is a product designer, and which seemed like maybe from the outside was a weird choice for an API company, but I actually thought it made a lot of sense at the time because we we wanted to innovate on user experience. And even though APIs are quite intangible in some ways, you still need to think quite hard about how they're going to be used and how you're making them easy to be used. And so that was the reason behind that choice. And plus, I mean, generally UI and UX in the travel industry hasn't been the top from what we've seen elsewhere, and so I think he was bringing that experience. And then the team has expanded quite a lot. I mean, now we have 80 people, 60 out of the 80 are in product development, so a very large engineering team, and yeah, just cranking away.
You say that UX and travel it's a little bit behind, and I want to talk about the experience part as well, because as a developer, you've got a developer experience, but you've got a user experience focus there. Why is user experience so hard in travel, Steve?
I mean, there's probably a lot of reasons for it. I think one of the main reason that we've seen on the flight side and is that the user experience is somewhat of a reflection of the complexity of the business logic that it sits on top. If you think about all of these airline rules and the way the systems are working and what you can do and cannot do at a different time or at a different place in the life cycle of your booking, then obviously that leads to quite complicated user experience and user interfaces. So I think that's probably one of the main reasons from what we've seen.
Paul Graham refers to the Stripe effect. It is the change in another team when they start using Stripe as part of their product, if I'm remembering correctly. Now, you guys share a little bit of pedigree there with Stripe in that you've gone through the Y Combinator incubator or accelerator, I should say, in Silicon Valley. Can you talk a little bit about that? And can you tell me, is there any influence from the Stripe world and what you're doing?
Yeah, there are a lot of influences. First, I mean, the company is API and technology at its core, and I think that's one of the big parallel. We've um, we've also invested from the very early days on developer experience and democratizing access to the industry that we were in. So I think there are a lot of parallels.
Okay. I think at any good conference bar or at ITB or any other travel conference, when you bring travel industry people together, we love to talk about the things that are going wrong. We love to spot opportunities. Can you tell me what you mean by the democratization of the travel industry there? Where are you coming from with that?
Yeah, the idea for us is that the industry, while open, and I mean, I've met very, very like amazing people since I joined, is very hard to enter. You need to have a lot of relationships. You need to understand it. Again, like if we go back to this, what I was saying earlier on the UX piece, like you have a lot of airlines rules and um, I mean, operations is a topic on its own if you're selling flights, and that that is the opposite of democratized in many ways. You need to be part of the circle. You need to have the knowledge, and you need to have the access. And we're trying to break down all of these barriers with Duffel.
Let me see if I can bring the narrative forward here a little bit. We have the idea that it's hard to enter the travel business in the first place. When you do, it's hard to sell flights because they're ridiculously complicated. All the rules are different, and even the way the express rules, maybe between one company and another, are different. Anyway, it's complicated. You're really setting yourself out there on almost an altruistic mission to make flight easy. Maybe to make it as easy as to use as Stripe. But you're setting yourselves out on a really, really tough call there, Steve.
Very tough. Yeah.
God, it can't have been easy. That's got to be. How do you stay? How do you even map how complex it is and how to make it less complex? Are you taking it in one problem at a time? Are you saying first let's get the sales, then we'll figure out how to do cancellations? Like, how do you manage a project as complicated as this?
Yeah, it's a real challenge. There's a lot of product complexity. There's different problems, different areas. I talked about technology earlier. We we discovered very quickly that beyond technology, there was a problem around commercial partnerships and regulation, and you had to have IATA licenses and local licenses, and then we found out about the operation piece, how you manage bookings when they've been made and change them, and payments lately has been a big area of focus for us, and I think we tend to take one problem at a time. As you said, we've focused very much on the technology piece initially, and on that technology piece, we did search and book first. We were really trying to get that right and get that working. So it's all about breaking down the problem into smaller pieces and then tackling them one by one, and keeping that cohesive vision of where you want to go in your head, and Yeah.
When you set out to be easy to use and you set out to solve the barriers to entry to get flight or to get access to flight content, you're really and if it is terribly hard to use, maybe there's a low bar, but just how much energy and how much effort is required to deal with you, Steve? Do I have to sign NDAs? Do I have to send you a blank check? Do you need a kidney? What's required when dealing with you?
Not much. I mean, if you go on Duffel.com today, you can sign up, get access to a test environment for API, and start searching and booking flights in a safe environment where you can't lose any money and create any mess on an airline reservation system. Once your integration is ready, you have to fill in a few forms again online, and you can do that the same day. And then we'll do some checks and you'll be up and running. It goes very, very quickly.
What's it? Actually, I'm curious to know. What's it like to make a mess on an airline reservation system? Now, don't get me wrong. I believe you guys have great engineers there. You've got 60 of them. They all work in product. It's very tech focused. Things have got to have gone wrong.
Oh yeah. I mean, 100%. I think yeah, there's like tons of things that can go wrong. You can create reservations without realizing you're creating them. You know, it's like the for the more technical out there, the for loop that you didn't realize was there and ended up creating like, you know, 100 or 1,000 reservation on the system that you didn't intend to. And like you see these things happening like very frequently during development, not necessarily in the context of travel, but I mean, I'm a software engineer myself, and I've definitely done that. You know, you make a mistake in your code, and suddenly you've fired 1,000 requests to a service where you intended to only send one. And other things we see is reservations being created with test names or fake details, which then so the airlines will, if you do that in a production environment, they will fine you for it. So there's lots of things you need to know about that if you're new to the industry, you probably wouldn't. And the big reason for us to give a test environment is that people don't have to worry about these things. We kind of take care of them.
Like if you're just thinking about a plain engineering organization, like having a play loop, meaning the cycle you go from having an idea to putting it into code to testing it out to getting a response, that loop, you go through thousands of these a day if you're well, if you're lucky, you get through thousands of these a day. Just the ability to experiment quickly. You know, did you find that you were making a fake airline so that you could test against it, or how did you get that safe space built? Or that safe culture built so that engineers weren't afraid to try out their next experiment having sent 1,000 bookings off to a reservation system. Talk about just how you manage being experimental when not only the barriers to entry and all that is so high, but when the fines and all of the potential downside is actually quite massive.
I don't think we've solved it for ourselves, interestingly, or not entirely. We've focused and put a lot of energy into solving it for other people, the people that build on our platform. But for ourselves, we're still at the mercy of making these mistakes. Now, with that being said, we've invested quite a lot in the tooling around building new integrations. So we have fail-safe in place and a lot of like testing and fake mock environments that our engineers can use. But it's not bulletproof. At the end of the day, we still need to interact with the real airline system, whether it's sandbox or production environment. And yeah, we can make mistakes.
But you must have a good culture of forgiveness to enable that.
Oh, 100%, no blame. We do very regular postmortems on issues that arise in production and uh, try to draw out all of the action items and then make changes within the organization or the code to for it not to happen again.
Do you still contribute to the code base, Steve?
Very rarely these days. Not for the lack of wanting to, but the lack of time more than anything. But yeah, very rarely.
It's almost a badge of honor for a CTO or a CEO to be able to say, "Hey, I still code," when you have a big organization behind you. But it's good to see that you still have the dev environment on your machine, I think, ready to
Oh
go.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I have it running, and it's running like frequently, and I try new things, but it's rare that I get the opportunity to write code that makes its way into a commit that is then sent to the engineering team that they can review, and then make its way into production. That's very rare.
I think the way you describe the product as being, travel startup can think of their own differentiator, or the travel brand, or even the non-travel brand can think of adding flights. It's the and flights on top of your existing product, which I think is kind of the magical part of what you do. You are so, at least that's the promise anyway, you're so polished in just creating an interface into this incredibly complex business that anybody working with you can just kind of fire and forget, or work with you almost on a superficial level while they're focusing on the magic that they're doing around it. The and flights part is really where you fit. What's the best and flights you've seen so far? I mean, you mentioned Uber, but have you seen crazy ideas being built with Duffel at the heart of it?
Not crazy ideas, I would say yet. We've lots more developers than I expected that want to build their own little personal projects on top of flights. One of the things we see very often, but it kind of runs into the limitation of uh, our API and the airline systems that it sits on top of, is individuals or companies wanted to ingest a ton of flight data to do analysis on it, find the best destinations or find the best price or anything along these lines. And that's just not a workflow we can really support today. So that's something we see quite a lot, and that surprised me because I expected people would be mostly wanting to book, but actually there's a ton of interest on the search side.
It's not a well-known fact in the business, but Gillian from Hitlist, who's joined us here on the podcast before, has talked a little bit about this, but it's not a generally well-known fact that it is a cost center to prepare a flight price. You wouldn't think about it. We just think about it as kind of throwaway information. As a user, we see it on the website. We think, that costs them nothing. It must be free to get access to. But it's a cost center, and either the airline pays or the user of the data pays. So it's not clear for the first timer in the business or somebody new to the business to understand that, I have to pay for the flights, therefore I can't have all the fares and just find the best one. That's not clear, right?
No, not at all. The industry is still quite almost plagued by that in some ways, I would say. I mean, for good reason that I've come to understand over time, the the way the airlines do pricing, the kind of revenue management, and all of these systems are built in a way that you can't just do a million requests for fun and not do anything with it. It's quite expensive to run the computation, but they're like a lot of I would say a lot of like interesting things happening in the industry, new players in the revenue management space, thinking Flyer, for instance, and I think we'll see new models and maybe like some of these limitations being removed.
It was actually, this is going way back, and I don't think anything ever happened with the company after I saw this demo pitch. It kind of seemed to fade away. Morton Lund's startup, Everbread, one of their promotional messages was, if you're calculating the routing between Boston and San Francisco, for example, it's a 3,000-mile jaunt. It's, it might be a domestic flight, but it's still long distance. There are something like 7 million valid routings that will come out of a traditional distribution system powering flight search that you might eventually see on Kayak or on Google or anything else. That's 7 million minus the top 10 that you're going to ignore. And finding the prices and calculating all the routes and finding the availability and all of that, that is seriously computationally heavy. So it's not, it's simple for us to consume because there's a huge amount of infrastructure that goes behind it. to deliver the price in the first place. But that's all invisible. Do you get the impression that if you're doing your job right, Steve, that nobody's going to know you exist? How are you going to be? How are you going to be famous? How are you going to fly to Mars if you're doing your job so well that nobody ever sees your brand?
That's a fun question. No, I don't have any intentions to be famous. I mean, I like what I'm doing. I like the problem and the space that we are in. So yeah, we'll just keep plugging away at it. Make the product great and try to make the travel experience for the end consumers a lot better and see what comes out of it. Yeah, no plans to go to Mars. Maybe we'll send some people. We do actually talk when people join the company. We actually talk about this idea of making travel more effortless and more seamless, and that it's not just about going across town, but across continents or spacefaring to another planet. So we definitely have views on space travel eventually, but yeah, no, personally, no plans to go to Mars.
One step at a time. Steve, what's on the horizon? What are you guys working on at the moment? What are you doing next? What gets you up every day?
Yeah, I mean the maybe before I talk about what we're going to do next, I can talk about what we've been doing very recently, which is informing what we're doing next. So we just launched Duffel payments. So it's a payment solution tailored for the travel industry. We've done that in partnership with Stripe, interestingly. And the idea is that payments is also one of the very complex piece when you enter the travel industry. You have to find a payment provider that will work with you. It's a high risk industry. There's large average order value. I mean, it's very specific, and it's good to have a specialized solution. We've coupled it with our flights product, so it's really good. And we're going to invest a lot into that because we see that as an area that deserves more attention. One of the big piece for us also this year, and we've obviously added more airlines over the last couple of years. We're working with more partners, and we are really looking at the post-booking servicing experience and how we can make that a lot better and a lot more automated. And there's a ton of low-hanging fruits there, and I'm really excited about the roadmap that we have for this year.
If you're doing your job well, there's a chance that you'll do it so well, especially with the designer and the founding team. But there's a chance that you'll do it so well that you'll maybe surpass the average airline's ability to sell and service their customers. Is there ever any tension when you're working with airlines around what you're doing in your roadmap, your mission? Is there ever any conflict there?
No conflict, no, really, because we really think about the customer, the end customer. And as personally, as a customer, I don't want to be talking to an airline or a travel agent to get my flight changed or my flight canceled or see what the other options I have. And the airlines also wouldn't mind getting less support volume and seeing more automation. So at the end of the day, everybody wins, and there is no conflicts really on what we're doing.
You've a lot of problems to solve. What's next on your list? Where's the roadmap? And from the sound of things and what you've said so far, um, you've solved every problem you've come up against, whether it was regulations or some technicality when it comes to selling fares or setting up or taking payments. You're solving one problem at a time. What problems are you going to solve next?
And the big one we'll probably come back to. We've done the minimum, and I don't know if I can even call it the minimum yet. We're not really satisfied with that area of the product yet, but it's search. Um, the problem in search is still quite crazy. The response time, and especially with NDC that is still quite new, are just not satisfactory for a modern experience. So it's likely to be a big one for us. But again, this year we're probably going to put a lot more emphasis on the post-booking servicing piece.
Steve, you were in Y Combinator. It's, based in Silicon Valley, is the hub of innovation. A lot of travel tech coming out of there. Some great travel tech in Europe, by the way, too. Let's not forget that. But some great stuff happening in Silicon Valley. You raised quite a lot when you started. Where are you in your journey as a business today? Are you always raising? What's happening there? What's happening next?
Yeah, so we raised quite a lot of capital in 2019, 50 million across 2 rounds, and we still have a lot of capital available, and I've been expanding the team quite rapidly, and will continue to do so in the foreseeable future. So no immediate need of capital at the moment. So we're not actively fundraising.
Cool. Wow. So you're doing well as a business.
Yeah, we're doing very well as a business. The growth over the last 2 years has been very good. It's been a tough 2 years, as it's been for everyone in the industry. But we launched the API at the end of 2019, so we had that luxury that we were starting from zero, literally, and have grown throughout the last 2 years. So yeah, really, really excited about this year and doing very well as a business overall.
So all of your numbers are going to be going up, even through
I mean,
COVID.
yeah,
So
like
fair play.
if the last 6 weeks are any indication, 2022 is going to be a big year for us.
Steve, looking towards the end of this year, I hope we'll be able to have a chat again to see how the first 6 weeks turned into the rest of 2022. But before you go, would you share some surprises or some general advice you didn't expect to have learned in your own journey as a travel technology entrepreneur?
Yeah, it takes time, but it's generally very rewarding to reach out to a lot of people when you're entering a new industry. It takes time to build a relationship, but I've found that people are extremely helpful and will gladly share what they've learned. So that's definitely one thing I would do again, and one thing I would give as an advice. I mean, as a matter of example, I think our first call was in February 2018, where I had been in the travel industry for the total sum of 3 months, and I knew literally nothing. And you were super helpful back then, so very, very grateful for your time.
Flattered. No, I'm delighted to have been able to track your journey. I've been surprised time and again by how well you've done, and I hope you continue to surprise me, Steve. There's no shortage of things to put right in travel tech and in the travel business in general, and it's lovely to have you putting tools out there that make it easier and easier to work with some of the biggest players in the travel business. So fair play on that. Steve, thank you for joining us today on the Travel Massive podcast.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
The Travel Massive Podcast. TravelMassive.com.